We see that God has called us on a mission. God has called us to steward what He's given to us, time, talent, and treasure for Him. And all of a sudden we move from hoarding and being selfish to being giving and generous. It's action fruit. Action fruit. And we see that fruit is born here with patience. With patience. This power, the seed comes in and it releases this power. And we see that it's it takes time. You know, it's just not like, bam, you're a mature Christian. It takes time, hearing, listening, understanding, a gradual, sustained direction. Not that you're not going to have a couple steps back in a season where, man, it may be rough, but there's a gradual, sustained direction of obedience where you're giving your life to Jesus and you're becoming more like Him. It's patience. And I saw this, just a great picture of this this weekend. The greatest basketball coach who ever lived, a guy named John Wooden, died at 99 2 days ago. He coached UCLA, 10 national championships, only player and coach to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. I had the privilege of getting to know him a little bit when I was in college and I played, because he was a friend of our coach, and so he would come to our practices and speak at some of our banquets and things like that. And absolutely amazing guy who loved Jesus and trusted Jesus with his life. And here's John Wooden, who, if you follow the news or read the paper or anything like that, the mainstream outlets and TV and radio have been talking about him incessantly the last 2 days. In fact, front page of the Seattle Times today, the columnist wrote an article on him, which was just incredible, because what happened with Wooden is that this guy who bore fruit with patience, and he had attitude fruit and he had action fruit. And he loved people. He loved his players. He loved the people around him. And so what happened was, even though he's the greatest basketball coach that ever lived, 10 national championships, crazy, huh? You guys are like, basketball, what's that? It's like, it's a ball. You throw it into what they call a rim, and there's a net on it. You throw it in there, and you get something called points, okay? And he had 10 national championships. And here's what people are talking about all over the news, all over the world. Hardly anything about the national championships. They're talking about John Wooden, his faith, his character, his fruit. They talk about how when he was interviewed before he died, and someone asked him, what do you want God to tell you? And he said, I want him to say, well done, good and faithful servant. And people are talking about that. The columnist in the Seattle Times, he's talking about that. Yeah. And now the world, they're not talking about the national championships. They're talking about how this guy made a difference in people's lives for the glory of God. And it made me think of Matthew 5, where it talked about that people, the whole point of us being here is that people in the world, in the city, would see your good works, they'd see your fruit, and they would glorify God who is in heaven.